Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Ishan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. Bihar votes for the third phase of assembly elections. Crucial polls for 50 seats spread over 6 districts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meetings with heads of the participating African nations. Talks focus on creating consensus on major issues between India and Africa. The Supreme Court refuses to ban firecrackers during Diwali, says it will endanger the common man's celebration of festivities. And Nepal elects its first woman president. Vidya Devi Bhandari of the ruling CPN-UML gets elected by a margin of over 100 votes. And Pervez Musharraf lays bare Pakistan's worst-kept secret, admits that government trained Lashkar-e-Toiba and treated Hafiz Saeed and Lakhvi as heroes. The top story this evening, one of Modi government's top priorities in its past year in power has been improving the ease of doing business in India. And the government's initiative has got a big boost from the World Bank. In its report, Doing Business 2016, the World Bank says the situation in India has improved quite a lot. Now, this has helped India go up 12 places to the 130th spot, though.
India has jumped 12 places in the ranking for ease of doing business. A World Bank report says that in the ranking for 189 countries, India now stands at 130. World Bank's chief economist and senior vice president Kaushik Basu says a jump of 12 spots by an economy of India's size is a remarkable achievement. In the annual report Doing Business 2016, Singapore is at the top spot, followed by New Zealand, Denmark, South Korea, Hong Kong, Britain and the US. China is ranked 84 and Pakistan is at 138th place. However, the government feels that the ranking does not reflect the true picture.
This 12-point ranking doesn't really reflect the true ease which has come, because it is as of 1st June and those actions which have already been implemented. And therefore, there are a large number of steps which we have taken and are in the process of taking, which I think will be effectively represented in next year's rating.
The numbers given in the report paint a very positive picture. If it took 127 days to start a business in India in 2004, it takes only 29 days in 2015. In fact, India ranks in the top 10 in protecting minority investors at the 8th position. This is because Indian laws grant strong protection to minority shareholders. In the report, the World Bank says India has eliminated the requirements for a paid-in minimum capital and a certificate to commence business operations, which has significantly streamlined the process for starting a business. Improving India's ease of doing business ranking has been a focus area of the Narendra Modi government since it came to power in May 2014. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And let's go across to senior journalist Priyaranjan Das to help us understand. Priyaranjan, the ease of doing business certainly has gone up by 12 ranks, India's rank in that report, but it's still at 130th position. So a lot to do, but at least it seems we are headed in the right direction.
That's right. It is quite incremental. In fact, if you look at it, originally last year, the report had ranked India at 142, but later on, by revised parameter, it had been revised to 134. So the current report, in fact, brings about a 4-place improvement in India's ranking. All said and done, means India could have achieved much better. Although these rankings are based on developments up to only June 1st, India and subsequent developments naturally haven't been taken into account in the report.
Right.
But India could have, this year itself, could have gone below 100 in its rank had it taken up the programs of reforms and easing business as the government had proposed. For instance, had the GST bill been passed, that would have contributed quite a lot. so was the government's intention of lending a certain amount of predictability to the tax regime, thereby making it easier to pay taxes, for instance. That is an area where India lags far behind, and that could have actually improved. There are many areas where India could have improved going by the reforms program that the government had proposed had they been implemented. So, of course, given the situation that was developing, particularly in the wake of reports of intolerance growing in this country, which the finance minister himself had acknowledged as not very positive development for India as an investment destination. The improvement of 4 places that comes with this World Bank ease of doing business report surely is a positive development.
All right, it is a positive development, but as you pointed out, there are a couple of concerns. Now, the GST bill is there. You talked about even other non-economic factors such as religious intolerance and other forms of intolerance that could dampen investor sentiment. As far as the direction that the government is headed in, now the disinvestment process also is under a question mark. So in that sense, as far as the key reforms are concerned, we've already talked about taxation. Talk us through other reform measures that really could improve the ease of doing business in India.
That's right. And, in fact, the government itself, that is the union government, had identified 98 steps that were taken to be, that was supposed to be taken at different levels, particularly at the level of the state governments, to ease, of doing business in India. And the state governments, as a recent review pointed out, have made progress, although the progress could have been much faster and better. Only about 50% of those 98 steps that are required to be taken have been implemented, that too by a dozen odd states.
Right.
So if you look at the various jurisdictions we have in India, there is much more that the state governments can do, and both in terms of healthy competition among the states to attract businesses, also in terms of the steps themselves. They could also think about steps that will help ease business, doing business in their states.
All right, the states proving to be of critical importance. We leave it over there. Priya Ranjan Das, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand how the ease of doing business in India can be improved. On to news from the elections in Bihar, where over 50% of the 1.45 crore eligible voters cast their vote today for the third phase of polling. The Election Commission is holding a press conference right now. In fact, the Deputy Election Commissioner is addressing the media right now. Let's go across to that.
Postal ballot cast किए और लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की दृष्टि से जो कार्रवाई की गई उसमें नॉन अवेलेबल वारंट्स के 9,784 केसेस एक्सिक्यूट किए और इसमें जो ऐसे क्षेत्र थे उसमें 4,704 वल्नरेबल स्थान केंद्र उसको चिन्हित किए गए थे और जो मतदाता हैं जिनको जो वल्नरेबल थे या जिनको किसी तरह की परेशानी या जिनको इनको कोई भयभीत किया गया हो, उनमें से करीब 3,68,000 लोगों को चिन्हित किया गया था, जिनके लिए उन क्षेत्रों पे जाकर कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डिंग मेजर सीपीएफ ने वहाँ के सभी मजिस्ट्रेट्स ने किया और इस तरह से एक कंजेनियल एटमॉस्फेयर बनाया गया और 18,000 से ज़्यादा लोग ऐसे थे जिनको ट्रबल मेकर के रूप में आइडेंटिफाई किया गया था और उनके विरुद्ध विभिन्न धाराओं में प्रिवेंटिव एक्शंस भी लिए गए थे। लगभग 48,000 ऐसे मामले थे जिनमें 107(16) के अंतर्गत कार्रवाई की गई थी। जो व्यवस्थाएं की गई थी चुनाव से संबंधित, तो उसकी कुछ अन्य व्यवस्थाएं इस तरह से 479 मॉडल पोलिंग स्टेशन बनाए गए और जो पूरे कुल 14,000 से ज़्यादा पोलिंग स्टेशंस थे, जिसमें 6,747 पोलिंग स्टेशंस को क्रिटिकल पोलिंग स्टेशंस के रूप में आइडेंटिफाई किया गया था और 1909 ऐसे थे जो नक्सल प्रभावित क्षेत्र के रूप में उनको पोलिंग स्टेशन को चिन्हित किया गया था। इस दौरान ऑब्जर्वर्स के अलावा 3179 माइक्रो ऑब्जर्वर्स डिप्लॉय किए गए थे। इस पूरे चुनाव व्यवस्था में 75,000 से ज़्यादा पोलिंग पर्सनल को डिप्लॉय किया गया था।
The Deputy Election Commissioner talking about the polls in Bihar that went off relatively peacefully this time around in the third phase. Remember, there are 2 more phases to go before counting on the 8th of November. Now, as far as this phase is concerned, the prominent candidates included 2 sons of Rashtriya Janata Dal chief Lalu Prasad, who contested from Raghopur and Mahua districts of the Vaishali district. Voting also came to an end at 5 p.m. today with no untoward incident reported. So here's a wrap of the third phase of polling today.
Voting for the third phase of elections in Bihar began at 7 a.m. in the morning. The fate of 808 candidates in 50 constituencies spread over 6 districts was sealed earlier on Wednesday. The districts that went to polls are Bhojpur, Buxar, Nalanda, Patna, Saran and Vaishali. Voting began at 7 a.m. in 14,170 polling stations. The polling came to an end at 4 p.m. in 10 constituencies due to security reasons and at 5 p.m. in the rest of the 40 constituencies. A total of 50 constituencies went to polls in the third phase. 808 candidates were in the fray in this phase, out of which 71 or 9% were female candidates. A total of 14,170 polling stations were used. 1.45 crore people were eligible to cast their vote in the third phase, out of which 78,31,388 were male, 66,86,718 were female voters and 599 others. The fate of several heavyweights was sealed in this phase, including that of Lalu Prasad's 2 sons Tej Pratap Yadav and Tejasvi Yadav, contesting from Mahua and Raghopur seats respectively.
पूरा महागठबंधन बिहार के 5 चरण में स्वीप कर रहा है। इसमें भाजपा खास करके नरेंद्र मोदी जी लगातार कमल कार्ड खेल रहे हैं।
I don't think so. There is a battle. Now just the formality is just left over there. Or it's actually in my constituency, BJP didn't got any of the candidates against me. Not a perfect candidate. So they have taken a JDU's MLA.
भाई तो मेरे दोनों जीत रहे हैं और महागठबंधन के जितने भी उम्मीदवार हैं उनके सबके जीत की कामना मैं करती हूँ।
The other prominent politicians whose fate was decided in this round were BJP leader Nandkishore Yadav from Patna Sahib, Ministers Shyam Rajak and Shravan Kumar from Pulwari and Nalanda seats respectively, Deputy Speaker Amrendra Pratap Singh from Ara and BJP's Chief Whip in the State Assembly Arun Kumar Sinha from Kumrar.
मैंने अपना वोट डाल दिया है और वोट डालने के लिए हम यहाँ आए हैं और वोट डालने के बाद हम आगे के चुनाव प्रचार में निकल रहे हैं। सभी मतदाताओं को अपना वोट डालना
ने हमारा हिसाब से पूरी बिहार में 5 चरण में बीजेपी आगे रहेगा।
Apart from the heavyweights in the fray, there were several other bigwigs who cast their vote, including Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, BJP leader Sushil Modi, and Union Ministers Ravi Shankar Prasad and Rajiv Pratap Rudy, among others.
तीसरे चरण में मेरा विश्वास है कि ये 3/4 की बहुमत तक जाएगा और हर हालत में बिहार में सरकार बनाएंगे। ममता जी आ जाएं, अरविंद केजरीवाल आ जाएं, कोई अपील कर इनकी अपील का कोई असर नहीं पड़ने वाला है।
कि अपने नेताओं से फील्ड में चर्चा करने के बाद और अपने इंडिपेंडेंट सोर्स से वेरीफाई करने के बाद जो हमारा निष्कर्ष है वो ये है कि आज का दिन हमारे लिए बहुत ही उत्साहवर्धक रहा है। फर्स्ट सेकंड फेज भी हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छा रहा है।
In the last assembly poll in 2010, the JDU had won 23 seats while the BJP had won 19 of the 50 constituencies. This time around, from the Grand Secular Alliance, RJD contested from 25 seats, JDU 18 and Congress 7. From NDA, BJP contested from 34, LJP 10, Hindustani Awam Morcha 4 and Rashtriya Lok Samta Party 2. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Now, at his first town hall event in India, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said his company was committed to net neutrality, even as he lent support for zero rating plans that violate the principles of free internet. Here's more.
No matter what you do, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. I was a college student when I got started, right? I mean, I didn't know anything about business or hiring. You know, no one is born with these skills, right? So you learn them the same way that you learn everything else, right? Trial and error.
Under fire for Facebook's free basic program, its CEO Mark Zuckerberg telling the town hall audience at IIT Delhi that his firm will continue to lobby for net neutrality.
You know, net neutrality is an important principle, right? And we do a lot to support it, both in terms of pushing for regulation that kind of enables this, and I mean also just in our own work, building an open platform.
Activists have hit out at the Facebook's Internet.org platform for violating the principle of net neutrality. Criticism that Zuckerberg says is unfounded.
You know, Internet.org is, we've had this program to spread internet connectivity. It is live in more than 24 countries and growing around the world. And here's a new stat that we haven't shared before, is there are 15 million people around the world who have access to the internet now because of the efforts that we're taking with Internet.org, who wouldn't have had it otherwise. And
the Facebook CEO is also upbeat about his company's prospects in the Indian market, as well as his goal of connecting 1 billion people to the internet. India is the second largest user base for Facebook after the United States with 130 million users.
So our mission is to give everyone in the world the power to share what's important to them and to connect every person in the world. And India is the world's largest democracy. It's, you know, one of the biggest countries where if you really have a mission of connecting every person in the world, you can't do that without helping to connect everyone in India.
It was Zuckerberg's second visit to India. On Tuesday, he visited the Taj Mahal, a monument he called stunning and incredible what love can motivate us to build. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to the India-Africa Forum Summit, which is underway in Delhi, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi today held bilateral meetings with the heads of some participating African nations. The focus remained largely on UNSC reforms, terror and trade, with Africa seeking India's assistance for capacity building in the defense sector. Now, this is the first such Indo-African summit.
On day 3 of the India-Africa Forum Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held one-on-one meetings with heads of 19 participating African nations. Prominent among them being the presidents of South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana and Uganda. Though a brief one, the meeting was to decide the future course of the bilateral ties between India and the African continent. Issues like terrorism, climate change and UNSC reforms were also discussed. Through these deliberations, Prime Minister Modi seeks new opportunities for trade and economic cooperation with Africa. Through this summit, billed as the largest since the 1983 NAM summit, India seeks to challenge China's dominance on a continent that is blessed with vast natural resources and has the world's fastest growing population. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj also met her counterparts from 12 African nations. She said both India and the African region must boost trade to its maximum potential.
Nowhere is the impact of economic growth and development as visible as in Africa. You are a large continent of 54 countries and over 1 billion people. Trade and economic exchanges between India and Africa are a vital component of our all-round relationship with the rising continent. A total trade figure of about $72 billion in 2014-15 seems impressive, since it signifies more than a tenfold growth in a decade. However, it is still well below its potential, considering the size of India and Africa.
Indian companies have already invested over $32 billion in Africa, and bilateral trade between the two sides amounts to around $72 billion. Giving the continent importance, India was one of the first countries to extend the duty-free tariff preference scheme to Africa. And in a major boost to India's forceful push for UNSC reforms, Sudan has extended its support.
Reforming the UN, which was formed 70 years ago, and right now the composition and the rules that is governing the most important UN organs, including the UN Security Council, are not satisfactory to many countries. with Indians figuring in the world as an important economic and highly populated country.
There are also possibilities that India will increase its line of credit to African nations that currently stands at $9.4 billion as of now. However, much will depend on what type of political and strategic initiatives are decided on Thursday to assuage competing nations like China and Europe. With Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Inputs, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for us to take a very quick break. On the other side, the government tells the Supreme Court it is set to ban commercial surrogacy for foreigners in India. Details on that after this short break.
No reservation in super speciality courses. The Supreme Court stirs up a debate. What will it mean for affirmative action? Will merit trump political considerations? Watch The Big Picture at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, the Supreme Court has categorically refused a ban on bursting firecrackers during Diwali. In a significant order, the Apex Court has said it would be dangerous to infringe on the common man's right to enjoy his religious festivities. Now, the Supreme Court said this while refusing a plea made by 3 toddlers who wanted relief from the air pollution caused by firecrackers during Diwali. In fact, Chief Justice of India, H.L. Dattu, observed that if the court tries to enforce ban, it would lead to a dangerous situation with people saying it was their right to burst crackers outside their homes. The court also dismissed arguments to prescribe a time limit and designate public spaces where people could burst crackers. However, the bench did ask the centre to spread more awareness by way of advertisements in media. The court also reiterated its 2005 order prescribing a time limit for bursting crackers to avoid causing disturbance to the public during night time. The government is set to ban commercial surrogacy for foreigners in India. In fact, in an affidavit to the Supreme Court, the government said surrogacy should be allowed only for Indian couples. If the decision is implemented, no foreigners can avail surrogacy services in India. The government also banned import of human embryos except for research. A notification on Tuesday also proposed penalties on couples refusing to take custody of a surrogate child born with disabilities. A draft bill has been sent to states. Earlier this month, the court ordered the government to spell out measures to regulate the industry that exploits poor women. The case will be next taken up on the 24th of November. In a surprising admission by former Pakistan President General Pervez Musharraf, that has come as a big boost to India's efforts in making Pakistan admit that terror is a part of its state policy. In an interview, Musharraf said that Islamabad supported and trained groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba in the 1990s to carry out militancy in Kashmir. Speaking to a Pakistani news channel, he said, and I quote, "In the 1990s, the freedom struggle started in Kashmir. At that time, Lashkar-e-Toiba and 11 or 12 other organizations were formed. We supported them and trained them as they were fighting in Kashmir at the cost of their lives." The former army chief also added that Lashkar leaders like Hafiz Saeed and Zakir Rahman Lakhvi were treated as heroes. Hafiz Saeed is among India's most wanted men and often makes provocative anti-India speeches, while Lakhvi and 6 others are accused for facing trial for executing an attack on the 26th of November in 2008 in Mumbai that left 166 people dead.
You see, there is more than sufficient evidence now to show that Pakistan is promoting, supporting and exporting terrorism into India. And therefore, the government in Islamabad cannot get away by simply saying that these terrorists who infiltrate into India happen to be non-state actors according to them, and therefore they are not responsible for it.
Nepal today got its first woman president. Vidya Devi Bhandari from the ruling CPN-UML was elected today as a successor to Ram Baran Yadav. She defeated her rival from the Nepali Congress, Kul Bahadur Gurung, by more than 100 votes to become the first woman president of the Himalayan kingdom. Vidya Devi Bhandari is the widow of popular communist leader Madan Bhandari. Now, China has reacted sharply to a warship being deployed in the South China Sea by the United States. China says it's lodged a strong protest with the U.S. ambassador. But despite the warning, the U.S. says it will fly or sail anywhere that international law allows. Pentagon officials said that the United States regularly conducts freedom of navigation operations around the world to challenge excessive maritime claims. The USS Lassen's patrol is the most significant U.S. challenge yet to the 12 nautical mile territorial limits that China claims around the artificial islands. Well, that's all from us. Goodbye.